Good morning, good afternoon, or as the case may be, good evening, and welcome to Distribution Strategy Group's Technology Leader Panel. How Midsize Distributors Leverage Technology to Compete. It's a fascinating topic, and as we came into this decade, which, by the way, we are now halfway through, already there was going to be a requirement for distributors to upgrade technology in a very serious way as a basis for competition. Then along came COVID, definitely required things out of our tech stack that we didn't require in the prior decade, not least of which was e-commerce. And then along came AI. So there's a lot of changes that have happened in the world that require different and better technology for mid-market distributors to compete. In a moment, we're going to be joined by Jeff Van Pelt from Cognitus and Dan Kamenstein from Epicor. I want to share a couple things first about first of all, our AI conference coming up in June. This is the fourth AI conference for distributors, applied AI for distributors conference that we've had. It's June 23, 25 in Chicago, right near the airport. It's about 5 minutes away. And really, what we're going to be looking at is things like what's delivering real value for distributors. We have enough history at this point to know where the good applications are, even though there are technologies that are coming down the pike soon. How can you boost productivity? How can you create a better customer experience? How can you create competitive basis with AI? Part of what we'll be discussing today. There will be more than 30 AI-enabled distribution tech companies, and you'll learn from them, as well as seeing a number of proven solutions in quoting, pricing, operations, customer service, supply chain. There will also be an opportunity to meet with technology companies to look at specific use cases. And then finally, we'll have special workshops on building your roadmap and building an AI agent. If you're interested in AI in distribution, this is absolutely the place to be. It's a terrific conference. You can scan the QR code, or you can go to Applied AI for Distributors. Next, I want to talk briefly about our offerings of software from Distribution Strategy Group. We call it the Distributor RX, with the emphasis on prescriptive Distributor RX software suite. First offering is Customer Experience RX, where we're able to really get actionable insights that help you create a happier customer base. And that would mean improving overall satisfaction pretty dramatically in about a year based on the insights that we gain. Similar offering on the employee side, where we're getting feedback that allows you to create best performance among your employees, really resonant and attractive culture, also will fuel your growth and profitability. And then finally, we have an offering called Demand RX, where we can estimate the size of your customer wallet in total and by product category, for both customers and prospects. So if you're looking to figure out where there are hidden opportunities in your customer base, Demand RX is for you. You can go to distributionstrategy.com/software, or you can reach out to me. Okay, I'd like to welcome our special guests, Jeff Van Pelt and Dan Kamenstein.
Hey, good morning, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm well, Jeff. How are you?
Doing fantastic.
Good morning.
Morning, Dan.
Pleasure to be here.
Did I get, is it Kamenstein or Steen?
Kevin Steen, but it's close enough. I respond to anything that's close.
Okay, I've got a good joke for you at the end about that.
Excellent.
Um, so welcome. So Jeff, you're the practice lead for consumer products and wholesale at Cognitus, and Dan, you're the senior principal product manager at Epicor. Could you each take about 30 seconds and tell us what your company does? I don't want to go into a long spiel, but just to set the context for the discussion we're going to have.
Sure. So for
Go ahead,
Epicor,
Dan. Kick us
yeah,
off.
please. Thanks, Jim. At Epicor, we support the make, move, and sell industries. In this case, we're really talking about the move industry of distribution. We've been doing distribution software for over 50 years. I'm particularly dedicated to the Profit 21 product. I've been with Epicor 38 years, all working on Profit 21. We have about 2,000 customers, and we are happily say that we are made for distributors by distributors.
Thank you.
Excellent. And good morning, guys. And Jonathan, really appreciate the opportunity to be with the DSG again. I always enjoy these conversations. So Cognitus, we are a systems integrator. So we focus on mid-market and we focus on SAP. Like SAP, we go to market by industry, and wholesale distribution is one of our largest industries. So looking forward to our discussion today. Lots of opportunities, facing wholesale distributors as well as some challenges, and hopefully we get into a discussion about how you can be successful in this current environment.
Absolutely. By the way, I should mention to our audience, if you have questions, there is the Q&A button down at the bottom. And if you submit a question, we'll take a look at it and figure out whether we want to answer it in the moment or defer it to a later point. I do ask that you submit questions with you identifying yourself rather than anonymous. We tend to not take the anonymous questions. So when I was setting up the discussion before you came in, already coming into this decade, there was going to be a requirement for a deeper and better tech stack for mid-market distributors. Seems like one of the challenges with mid-market distributors is for, I'm getting some background noise, by the way. Okay. I think one of the challenges for mid-market distributors is they're, and for the providers, the tech providers, is that they're often looking for things that have more of a solution feel out of the box rather than something highly customized. Both of you have been involved in implementations. You have customers where there's been large amounts of customization. Jeff, could you talk to us about how you see that challenge for mid-market distributors of getting good value for the dollar they spend on technology?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Jonathan. And things have changed quite a bit. You kind of rattled through the timeline, going through COVID years and those types of things. And one of the benefits of time is that things become much more simplified for distributors to get enterprise grade systems into their operations at a fraction of what the cost used to be, 5, maybe even 10 years ago. Um, the thing that I always, am astonished by is what distributors are able to do with very limited technology today. There are tremendous acts of heroship going through those operations. I see a lot of manual processes, a lot of clipboards. And when you look at how we operate with distributors today, from whether it's SAP or Epicor, it's really about getting that 80% of the best practices implemented, but still allowing the flexibility for a company to have things that make them unique. Maybe they have something that makes them unique in how they service their customers, something unique in their e-commerce. And you still allow that flexibility while taking the best practices out of the box and really right sizing it for your business.
So in what you just described, Jeff, the customization is more than zero, right? You're saying like it could be that 20%. I'm not, I mean,
Yeah.
it might be 25, but the point is there is some modicum of customization that would happen in that scenario to support your particular value proposition.
And typically what I see, Jonathan, is I won't call it customization, I'll call it configuration. And a
Okay.
lot of that is, companies have existing solutions that they'll want to integrate to their ERP. So it's those types of things. It's not taking a massive business process and turning it on its side. It's, taking an order is taking an order, right? You don't need to get
Mhm.
super complicated.
Yeah.
So the customizations that we see are really minimized, especially as you move into this public cloud world where everything is standard. You get the functionality end to end out of the box from procurement all the way to sales. So yeah, it's a different world for distributors today.
Yeah, for sure. We like to call that extensibility as much as customization. where users can extend the capabilities of the application, whether it's tailoring screens or creating, their individual tables or API-based integrations. Or for those who are more sophisticated, they might want to write business logic, but they have those capabilities and those tools available to them for any level of skill that's out there. And a lot of them are commoditized technologies, so they can find assistance if they need it, and it's not something they have the skill set for.
Got it. So that's much less expensive than customization, right?
For sure. And it
Both.
keeps them on the upgrade path, and they keep control over it rather than necessarily having to rely on somebody else to maintain that going forward as well.
Okay. So for a distributor who, let's just take an example, they're running on QuickBooks or they're running on Great Plains. Um, as they upgrade into the more powerful mid-market platforms, how should they think about prioritizing these technology investments? Do you start with ERP? Are you looking at peripheral pieces around the ERP, inventory management, warehouse, e-commerce, analytics? Where do you start as you start to make that kind of a transition?
Dan,
Yeah,
I'll let
I
you
would
take the
certainly
first stab
start.
at that.
Yeah, I would certainly start with ERP. ERP is really kind of the backbone of all of that. Get that solid ERP footing in place. Most ERPs today have the ability to extend to an e-commerce solution, an analytics solution, a CRM solution. A lot of them have that built in as well. But if you want to bring in, an external tool to go with that, but the ERP is going to be your system of record. It's going to be the system that's really driving your business. Really drive on that and really prioritize getting that ERP and getting your processes nailed down with your ERP system, with an eye toward the things that are going to come on day two, if you will, after that ERP is up and running.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Where I see a lot of distributors starting, because ERP is much broader than it used to be, right? It covers all the functions that a distributor, works within their organization. But by and large, I see companies starting their digital transformation journey in finance because everything revolves around finance, right? And then sales and distribution gets a fast follower. And then the other thing is it really comes down to where do you think this is going to provide the value to your business? What's the ROI? And that really decides then what your roadmap is going to be for deploying other capabilities of the broader ERP platform. But fundamentally, I see finance as being, the most fertile ground for where to start.
That's a really good take. I love both of those answers. Um, in terms of the market itself, are there external drivers that make this tech transformation adoption more urgent for the mid-sized distributors?
Yeah, I think
Why,
so
why
for
couldn't
sure.
why, why couldn't they just stay with GP or QuickBooks?
Yeah, and you think about even, we still today see people who are coming from stuff that's even more rudimentary than that. Not too long ago, of course, you would take a request over the phone, you'd hang up, you go out to the warehouse, you'd look for the inventory, you'd call the customer back. You do that today, the customer's already bought it and probably placed their next three orders from someplace else online. It's really that omni-channel space and being able to meet the customer or the contractor where they want to be met today, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's phone. The expectation now is much more around self-service, instant quote, near instantaneous delivery. So you really need to have an integrated, intuitive, easy to use, responsive system to manage that, and that can see all across your business and can integrate your logistics suppliers for delivery if you're not doing your own deliveries. Integrate with your suppliers to make sure you know where incoming inventory is at. You could just reduce that overall transaction time, make workers more efficient.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, for distributors, the customers are getting more and more demanding. So the systems of the past really don't allow you to provide differentiation vis-a-vis how you treat your customer and meet their expectations. The other thing I think that's important to understand is in this environment where there's volatility of the supplies coming in terms of the price, whether it be through tariffs or whatever, the ability to manage that activity and have, proper solutions in place to deal with, dynamic pricing as an example, are really causing companies to take a hard look at digital transformation. And fundamentally, Jonathan, distributors want to grow, right? So they hit these kind of roadblocks with some of the legacy technology that aren't going to allow them to meet their growth objectives moving forward. So I think that's kind of one of the main drivers, in addition to just the economics of what's happening to distributors today, because it's still a low margin business, and you got to do what you can. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in the
For sure.
market.
Yeah. And if you want to stay independent, you have to be up on technology because the larger distributors who are coming in and doing the M&A and are buying up the smaller ones are looking for where they can leverage technology to make a quick return on their investment. And if you're trying to not be in that game where you're getting swallowed up by somebody, you need to be up to date on technology to be able to keep up.
Yeah, so I think this whole concept of business agility, which is a little bit of an old phrase, but it sounds like it's very relevant today. Things are changing dynamically, and all of the scenarios that you described require greater business agility. I'm also thinking about some of the other things myself that have changed in terms of the market expectations. So I was visiting some distributors in Michigan the last couple of days, and one of them had an issue with returns management. Well, our our expectation around returns management is driven by what happens when we need to return something to Amazon. And few distributors can meet that level of returns management ease, no hassle. I mean, it's just too easy. 15 seconds in line at Whole Foods or at the UPS or wherever. Um, that is what the standard is driving. And we also see that we've seen that in the past on e-commerce. People expect the ease of an Amazon and e-commerce. So it seems like we have a higher bar to meet. Another example of where Amazon has changed expectations is we expect the level of communication about where the product is in order to delivery that Amazon can do. Few distributors can do that, right? So good. So as we think about going to a legacy system, and like you said, it could be below in terms of the level of a GP or QuickBooks. As you think about them going from a legacy system to a modern ERP or integrated, where are some of the big challenges? Where do people tend to fall down in that implementation or integration?
Yeah, so I'll give my take on that. First of all, it has to be, a board level commitment, right? So you need senior level management commitment to the implementation and the project and making sure that the resources are available to make it happen. The inverse of that is not just the leadership, but then you've also got to bring the user community along with you for the ride. Where I see things fail is where companies buy an ERP product and they kind of dump it in, and then the user base has no idea what they're doing. So keeping them engaged, making sure they see what the win is for them, is critical. And then, lastly, change management is something that oftentimes gets overlooked, but making sure they have the adequate training, making sure they have the adequate capabilities and resources and whatnot to be able to utilize and get the most utility out of the system. And we'll talk about data later, but data is a huge piece as well.
So
Sure.
in the example you just mentioned, Jeff, the bringing the users along, if you're coming from spreadsheets, the gap between spreadsheets and any of the ERPs that you guys are selling is going to be greater than the gap between an ERP and the next ERP. Like
For sure.
they may not be bought into the business case, right?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to get them to trust the system, and that's where change management and formalized testing. It's hard in a small business to pull that time away, but we call them conference room pilots, user acceptance testing. Those type of activities are critical. The other thing, I agree completely, Jeff, with the items you had on there. They were exactly what I had on my list. One other one I had too is if you're coming from another system, don't be focused on making the new system work exactly like the old system. If you're migrating systems, there's a reason why you're migrating. And if you want your new one to work exactly the way the old one did, then what are you going to gain from moving to the new system? And then make sure your standard processes work, and then come in and hit the complex or the edge cases. Don't try to solve for the edge cases on the first day of your implementation. Make sure you can take an order, get it in a box, get it out the door, and then deal with what happens when you have a back order or a direct ship or something that's outside the norm of what your daily business does, so that you're ready to hit the ground running with it.
Yeah, Dan, I couldn't agree more just on that comment about putting in a new system to do the same old stuff. It really doesn't provide the business value. And clearly we've seen companies do that. And, it's our job and your job at Epicor to make sure that they're looking at, you know, not just a technology transformation, this is a business transformation, right? So it's not a tech project. It's a business project that happens to utilize technology. And if you're just going to do the old same stuff with a new system, it's the ROI just isn't there to do it.
I could really imagine that desire to do the old stuff dies hard.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Especially for distributors coming from maybe a homemade or a homegrown system that they've had, the guy on staff for 20 years writing it and can make changes to it whenever they want. And now he's ready to retire and they're just used to that. It's hard to break that habit.
Absolutely. So when you think about when you think about the managing that change, people, process, culture, what are the best practices? Let's start with you, Dan, that come to mind on doing that.
Yeah, we always recommend and we include in our process starting off the project with a change management workshop. Talk about change, talk about what the goals are, communications, have a change management lead on the project to help coordinate communication throughout the implementation. And we work hard with our customers to bring that on and to drive that and make change management a big part of it, because we just talked about the value of change as part of this, and making change a value and not something that people feel they're being forced into, and addressing that from day one, and engaging the employees in that helps smooth that process over.
Yeah, and to add on to that, so when we go through an implementation, there's really five fundamental phases, but the upfront phases, as Dan described, we've got discovery where we're sitting down with the distributor SMEs to make sure we really understand the business process. We align that business process to our experience with best practices. We find out where the deltas are, and if there needs to be a shift based on the best practice to what the current process is, we'll make that decision. But they're involved hands-on in the system from day one. And that's really a key. So you've got Dan mentioned workshops, so we've got discovery workshops, and then we don't start putting the system together until we make sure we've got all the I's dotted and T's crossed relative to the business functionality that the users are going to get value from.
Maybe we get the J's dotted as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So one thing that we've seen with other technology, users can kill a CRM initiative. They just don't use it, right? The sales reps can kill an e-commerce initiative by getting in the middle of things and not promoting it to the end customer. How do users undermine or even kill an ERP initiative?
Yeah, a great example. It goes back to you're coming from an old system. Well, the old system did this. The new system can't do it that way. I've done it this way for 30 years. Or inventory, buyers and purchasing managers who are used to their way of determining, how much to buy. And you get into a new system where the algorithms maybe are a little different. Like, I don't trust this. I don't believe this number is right. There's just there's natural skepticism, and then there's skepticism, and then there is change averse people who will drive that skepticism, and that can become like a virus across everybody. So you really have to watch that change. You really have to get leaders in throughout the organization, not just at the executive level, who are bought in, who are positive, and leading change and driving change and saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to find a way to make it work. We're going to find a way to solve for these processes. And not just have everybody pushing back because it's change, because we know a lot of people are change averse, especially if you're coming from something you've used for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. And ironically, we see this quite a bit, Jonathan, where people hold near and dear their current tool or their current process. And at the end of the day, as we mentioned before, not just the leadership, executive leadership, but the functional heads as well. It becomes non-debatable, right? At the end of the day, these things are going to be put into place, and some people might have a hard time adjusting to it, but again, it goes back to throughout the process, bringing those users along, show them the value that it's going to do to provide with them, to better do their job. There's always got to be a what's in it for me to kind of get those slow movers to move. And that's a top-down type of initiative as well.
Seems like part of the thing with an ERP is that you have to use it as opposed to CRM
Mhm.
where you don't have to use it, right? So,
Yeah.
In theory.
say more.
No, so I mean, the ERP is just one set of functionality, but I think when distributors look at some of the capabilities, and whether it's SAP, whether it's Salesforce, whatever, there are things that are going to make their selling motion and activity much more efficient than it is today. So, and you're not really forced to use it. You can still go with some of your tried and true methodologies. You
Hmm.
just have to make sure some of the information that's required for your organization is in the system. But um, I think the benefits outweigh the penalties for utilizing, broader based capabilities in whatever platform you choose.
Yeah, I agree. I think you'll get some people who will always start slow and do the bare minimum to get by. So they'll use the ERP, if you will, but they won't leverage the added advantages and capabilities of it. And then eventually they'll learn. They'll see the guy in the next desk doing something like, "Oh, what are you doing? How did you do that?" Or
Right.
somebody will be getting things done more quickly, and they maybe they'll learn from somebody else. Or they'll figure it out for themselves over time, and different people learn and adapt at different paces.
So there's an adoption curve within the company.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. When we think about data, there's an idea when we talk about AI, your data's got to be perfect before you do anything. How can distributors balance using data for efficiency, and still provide or preserve, strong customer service, relationship-based advantages that smaller firms often have?
Yeah. So the first thing is, of course, we all going to realize the data is not going to be perfect
Right.
no matter what. And to hold off on implementing something like AI or such until you believe you have your data perfect, you'll never do it and you'll get past. You do have to figure out what's good enough. You can't, and the changing ERPs is a great time to do some of that cleanup work for sure. The other thing that we try to push is that data should be enhancing and not replacing relationships. You really
Mm.
want to combine those analytics with human expertise and deliver both operational excellence, but also you need to keep personalized service. That's what keeps these mid-sized distributors going, and that's how they compete against the Grangers and the Amazons and all of the world. So you don't want to just get rid of that, but equip those frontline teams with real-time insights where they need it. Let them figure out what works for them, and and they'll find where automation is going to save time and make them effective. And then track efficiency, track KPIs, and show the users, where they're getting efficiency out of the system too, and that'll help drive even more adoption.
Yeah, and the comment about perfect data is just spot on. And really, in the conversations I've had within the industry, people realize you don't need perfect data to get benefits out of AI, right? So the good enough is going to provide you incremental benefit in terms of whatever metrics you're trying to measure. The other thing I'll say is that the ERP platforms are now embedding AI in business functions. So they're embedding AI in procurement, they're embedding AI in warehousing, they're embedding AI in order management. And so those tools, people probably don't even realize they're using AI because they're just using the system, but the system's using a model and heuristic that's going to provide them with some options and answers. But I think fundamentally, when it's the AI is embedded in the platform, that helps. But data in general, again, some of the questions you were asking, Jonathan, were, where do we see, digital transformations fail? One of the biggest parts where I see failure is not taking data seriously and getting it clean before you start doing all these other more sophisticated things.
It's interesting. We see a fair amount of data from ERPs because of our analytics products, and I've yet to see a distributor say our data is good. I mean, literally from 2 million to $65 billion, they're all embarrassed about their data. They think their data is not good enough. And when we see the data, we see things like in the customer file, in the address, it says, do not call this customer or on hold. I mean, all kinds of stuff gets embedded in there. But everybody
Right.
thinks their data is not good enough, yet their businesses continue to operate, right?
Yep.
Well, and the other thing that we see as well, and Dan, I'm sure you see it as well, is, distributors are utilizing data outside of the ERP. It could be, financial market data. It could be things like weather. It could be
Hmm.
looking at a variety of different things. And, you know, platforms like Epicor and SAP are allowing that third-party data to become embedded in a business process within the ERP. But if distributors think they've got problems with data today, there's going to be a lot more data coming at them in the form of third-party data that they're going to need to manage. And fortunately, there's tools, Databricks being one of those to kind of help them assimilate that data and make better business decisions by utilizing it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We have lots of distributors in our world who use third-party tools, whether it's a Salesforce or other things, and want to bring all that together. We've built a data platform with its own data lake that can take data from hundreds of external sources, combine it with Epicor data, and let you do analytics and analysis on that. And so, yeah, you can be overwhelmed by as little or as much data as you want. And it's just a matter of making sure you understand what's there, and get it in the right channels and get things to the right people. But you want to try to get to that single source of truth. Even though it's not perfect, you don't want one side of the business managing on one side set of data and another side of the business managing on another set of data. That's a big thing, is to get everybody at least looking at the same thing to make consistent decisions.
That never happens, does it, Dan?
Never, never, never. Not even in our own businesses.
Right.
One thing you said, Dan, I want to pick up on, which is that mid-sized distributors do things that look slightly more custom for their customers than the larger national or global player, right? Um, so how can mid-sized distributors use that technology to differentiate against the larger players?
Yeah, we really focus on things that make you unique. Jeff, you said it before. We call it sometimes their secret sauce. What makes you unique? What makes your customers come back to you? Because you may not always be the lowest price, and a lot of mid-sized distributors won't be. They're not going to be lower priced than an Amazon or a Granger or somebody like that. But double down on things. Personalized relationships, value add opportunities. We see more and more distributors getting to things like fabrication and field service and rental and some of those other side area of the business. Managed inventory. If you can support managed inventory out at your customer sites, that builds a lot of stickiness. If you're helping to manage inventory out at a customer site, that really ties them into you. Not easy to do, but if you can do it and make it work. But anything that reduces that friction and makes it easier for your customers to do business with you can make up for some places that you might not be fully competitive as compared to some of the really big guys.
Yeah, and I've seen a real uptick in some of the creative ways that distributors are going about building that stickiness you described, Dan, in terms of, the service levels they're offering to their customers, doing kitting and just a variety of different things to make life easier for the distributor to consume the product and then to deliver it to their customer. So I see, infinite possibilities relative to how an ERP can help, distributors more effectively create that differentiation and stickiness because, to your point, I mean, some for some product lines, somebody can go to Amazon and buy it instead of a distributor. So distributors really need to, kind of take that Amazon effect seriously and do what they can with what they have to be as competitive as possible in terms of delivering that service level to the customer.
Yeah, and we hate trying to always compare ourselves to, distributors to the Amazons and the Grangers, but you have to because they're out there and they're everywhere. And as a distributor, your customers are using them, even if nothing more than to, look for price and availability before they call you for the
Yeah.
same part. So you have to always have that in mind, even if you want to try to ignore it.
And you see distributors, getting into marketplaces and such that, just to, have that ability to compete, but definitely something to keep an eye on in the future.
When we think about digital commerce and mid-market distributors, we're starting to see lift across the industry. We did our State of E-commerce report a couple months ago, and you know, pick the sector, they're all growing in digital commerce. What role do you see for mid-sized distributors on online ordering, customer portals, self-service? How does that change any of the back end systems and processes?
Yeah, so you want to have an ERP that can support that process for whatever it is, through APIs or whatever tools that are available. We know that contractors and all the like are going to go online before they pick up the phone. A lot of times they can't even easily pick up the phone to call the distributor anymore. Or if they do pick up the phone, by the time they've done it, like I said before, they've researched a part, found price on it. They want to see if you have it because they're going to be going by your location and on their way to the job site. Do you have this thing? Can you fill it for me? I'll pick it up on the way. So you really have to be able to meet them where they want to be met and give them their choice of omni-channel path to do business with you, whether it's an e-commerce website, an app, traditional calling you, coming into a location. If you're something, electrical or tile, and you might have homeowners coming in, you want to be able to walk around the showroom with them with a tablet. And as they're picking stuff out, be able to, be noting stuff on a tablet and not, handwriting it and then taking them back to a desk and then keying it all into a system. You want to, again, reduce friction, make that process easy. There's too many places that people can go and do stuff super fast and do it without leaving their house. So you want to you want to make sure you can meet people where and how they need to be met.
Yeah, no, that's a great take. You took a lot of what I was going to talk about. Um, we kind of have this philosophy of, letting distributors sell anything, anytime, anywhere. And that requires having real-time visibility into inventory, real-time visibility into orders, and a bunch of different real-time types of things. But uh, it really hits home, when Dan says you need to be able to be omni-channel and meet your customers where they're at, because single-threaded is not going to do it anymore. But I really see that the technology is not only going to assist in that real-time nature of getting closer to real-time delivery types of things, but it's also going to affect and impact things around your business processes, whether that's pricing or cross-sell, upsell. Um, just a lot of opportunities coming out of that from an e-commerce standpoint, and more are embracing it. To your point, Dan, portals are kind of the norm now, where they used to not
Mm-hmm.
be.
For sure.
One of the things that our audience may recognize is we've spoken about this distinction between shopping and buying. Shopping being researching, evaluating, assessing. buying meaning ordering, transacting, purchasing. So you go to Amazon, you order, you buy, you shop and you buy in the same location. But in B2B, you could shop online and then call your favorite CSR to place an order. Or the other way around, you could talk to your favorite CSR and then place an order online. So one of the things that was interesting in the e-commerce research we did was that if we roll the clock back 5 years, the percentage of small and mid-market distributors that could even take an e-commerce transaction was really a fraction of the larger distributors. And roll that forward, and now the percentage of companies that can take a transaction for pick it 0 to 10, 10 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 500, 500 to a billion above. They're all in the 20%. They all start they're all in the 20% range. So the large distributors, 29% of it can do it. Small distributors is like 20%. So I mean, they're really starting to catch up, which means that there's a levelization and democratization of that digital commerce across different sizes and distribution. So when we think about the next 3 to 5 years between now and the end of the decade, as I mentioned before, we are halfway through alarm clock. Um,
That's a scary thought.
isn't that amazing? I mean, it seems like we just got into the 20s and then it's like COVID just wiped out three years and we have no idea what time it is. Um, what are the tech trends or innovations that you think are going to really matter the most for mid-market distributors?
I'll take first swing at it.
Sure.
I'll say cloud, AI, and automation. I mean, cloud is really going to be the foundation for the other two, especially for mid-sized distributors. I mean, really, how many more mid-sized distributors still want to have a room with a rack of servers in it, especially in the days of ransomware and cyber attacks and all this other stuff? They're not experts on that, but cloud providers are experts. We can provide security, disaster recovery, all those tools, high availability, far beyond what the distributors can do for themselves. Get the distributors focusing on distribution and not on being IT experts. And then, of course, AI is coming, whether they like it or want it to or not. The trick is how to use it strategically, and those who can use it strategically will really thrive. Those who are using Chat GPT to find the spec sheet, that's one thing. But if you can use AI to automate your vendor RFQ processes or something like that, you're driving efficiency. You're not putting people out of work. You're making people more efficient in their work. You're letting people do things that are more strategic. And that's really where we focus on trying to build AI in, is to drive efficiency in the space and allow people to interact with customers where people need to interact, and let AI take some of the mundane pieces out and help with building automation. And the more we can automate, the more efficient distributors are going to be. And for mid-sized distributors, efficiency is everything, and trying to drive costs down in a low margin space.
Yeah, I'd go along with what Dan said. I think, cloud computing, first of all, it's going to bring affordability to these technologies to mid-sized distributors. Um, I think that from a AI standpoint, uh, I consult customers on, just like you're looking at your ERP as a kind of a roadmap. Do the same with AI, right? Just don't throw a bunch of, widgets at something. You have to understand where the value is going to be and start slow. It could be as simple as RPA, handling customer service types of things. Moving up into then, like we talked about before, things like dynamic pricing and AI-driven cross-sell, upsell, those types of things. But I really encourage people to look at it as a roadmap and really have two components to that. Where's the value going to be, and what's the appetite and capability of your people to utilize it? Just don't jam in AI for AI's sake. Take your time, do it right, and find the processes are going to benefit from it.
Do you think we're in a situation where mid-market, maybe even other companies, need to be creating a culture that's tech friendly, where the employees are open to tech? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, the question makes a lot of sense. And, when we look at distributors of all sizes, we've got an issue with an aging workforce, right? And to attract that new talent into your organization, having some of those new technologies is going to really help you in that workforce, acquisition and retention. So it's something that kind of goes overlooked sometimes. But the more you've got some advanced types of technology, I think recruiting the workforce of the future is going to be much more streamlined for you rather than if you're working on the old stuff.
Yeah, I agree completely on that. Many distributors start aging out. The next group of people coming in are not going to be wanting to work on, simple old green screen ERP systems. They're going to want to have stuff that is AI, or if they're working out in the warehouse, they're going to want wearable devices or things like that. Your the technology is going to drive the next set of workers who come into this space.
It's interesting. You were each talking about freeing up for higher level function. So a lot of the AI stuff that's being deployed today, not all, but a lot, has this flavor of matching and reconciliation. So it could be I'm matching a payment to an invoice. It could be I'm matching an order request, each line to something in my PIM or my ERP. Or there's a lot of things that have that matching and reconciliation flavor that free people up for higher level functions. The next stage of AI is going to be much different, though. I mean, it's going to be actually taking over some of those functions, right? So it seems like getting going with the stuff that's enabling to these people right now it seems like a really good move. When you think about um, the distributors in the mid-market, how do you gauge or how do you assess the readiness for taking on this ERP initiative? Do you even would you refuse to take a customer who is not sufficiently ready? How do you deal with all the readiness? Maybe let's start with you,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah, readiness comes in a lot of different forms. Uh, we work with an organization, we have a readiness check program where we evaluate a number of different things, including the current business processes, staffing levels. 'Cause one of the things that, is important is in mid-market distributors, oftentimes don't have this luxury, but when we're engaged in a project, having access to those SMEs, not full-time by any stretch, but 20, 30% during the project, sometimes that can be hard, and that puts a bigger burden on the integrator to do so. And we just factor that into our project plan, and knowing that we're not going to have the bodies to help out, and we'll backfill those. But it's understanding the two things, the mindset, the existing technology, and the ability of resources to make it successful.
Mhm. We do similar. We have what we call a cloud readiness assessment tool, which helps customers understand productivity gains, cost savings, and business impact. We also have a program we call Ascend, pairing distributors with an Epicor expert to analyze current environment, make recommendations going forward, manage processes. We can take people who are at any step along the technology scale and bring them forward, and we'll tailor a program to bring them forward at the pace that makes sense for them. To get them going. And some will crawl, walk, run. Some want to go straight to run. Some will start somewhere in the middle, and we'll figure out the right way to make them successful.
Seems like a really, really hard problem because I'm sure the
It is,
level of readiness varies greatly.
yeah, for sure, even within an organization. So,
What would you suggest to a mid-sized distributor as they work with the third-party players or the consultants? How do they avoid vendor lock-in and maintain agility? Let me add one other piece. Some of these companies may literally have two people on IT, right? Um, so given that lean staff that they may have in IT, Jeff, I'm thinking at the lower end of what you consider mid-market. They might literally have two people, right?
Yeah.
How do they avoid lock-in and maintain some level of independence going forward?
So for us, you know, we like vendor lock-in.
So do
We
we.
we want to.
So you say, Jonathan, when you say lock-in, you say it like it's a bad thing. That's what you're telling me, right?
Yeah, no, I think that, there's a tremendous benefit to having, one partner that can bring all aspects of the business to a distributor. So one of the biggest problems I see is if distributors go with a systems integrator that doesn't have, let's say, a procurement practice, right? So then they have to go to a third party contractor for that. And that just causes communication problems and a variety of different complexities within when you have that project. And we talked about earlier, during our readiness discussion, if there's only two people in IT, and trust me, I see that a lot. So, but we're there. We've got the enterprise architects. We can hold their hand, get them to where they need to be, and you don't need an army. We'll provide the army and
Yeah.
help you get through.
Yeah, and we see a lot where there's zero people in IT. The IT guy is also the controller or the operations manager or something. So, they're looking for, and you said the right word, Jeff, a partner, not a vendor, to take care of this. We want to partner with our customers, and be their IT partner to manage their system for them and let them focus on what they're good at. They're generally not good at IT. That's why and that's why we partner with the companies that we partner with as well to make sure they have a highly resilient, highly available system that's going to be there for them, and they don't have to worry about installing upgrades and becoming experts on ransomware and all of that work. We cover it for them. They can become experts on picking, packing, shipping as quickly as they possibly can to get stuff out the door and fulfill their customers' expectations.
So really embracing that cloud utility model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have one question, and I think we'll wrap up. So Robin asks, how can you talk about the data hygiene process? What are critical steps and resources in data hygiene for a mid-market distributor?
Well, I know
That's a
SAP has their set of tools, and I'm assuming Epicor does as well, but they've got tools around master data governance, guide and load procedures to really take the burden off the individual. So it'll kick out the outliers in the data and let you fix what's broken and not have to go through everything. So I'd say utilizing the tools from the vendors and there's some proprietary stuff that we do, and I'm sure Epicor does as well, but utilize those technologies because they're built off of, years of best practices of migrating data from the old, in the SAP parlance, the EC66 days to now the S4 HANA days. So there's a lot of learning that's happened over the years in terms of how to do this.
Yeah, and very similar. We have a lot of tools. We've migrated a lot of customers from a lot of different ERPs. We have dedicated groups to it. We are starting to be, we are building AI into that process as well to help with things like, data deduplication. A lot of times distributors have over time, they've merged and acquired and such. So the data, the more data you pile in on top of that, the more duplicates and all you have in it. It's a new implementation is a great time to clean that up. And we're leveraging AI to help identify that and work with the distributor to, kind of clean some of that data at the time we're bringing it in. Yet at the same time, not make them have to plow through spreadsheet after spreadsheet of data, looking for stuff and or worry about how do I extract data from my old legacy system. We can do that for you and get it into your Epicor ERP system quickly and easily and get you moving forward, and reduce the time it takes to implement because nobody loves spending months and months doing their ERP implementations for sure. So we're looking for ways to reduce that time as much as possible.
Gentlemen, this has been an amazing discussion. You both very clearly and calmly bring forward the issues that our mid-market distributors need to consider. I wanted to share a little bit about what's coming next. So a week from today, same time, um, we're going to be looking at AI for distributors 2025, but also the review on 25, but a preview on 26. And that will be with my colleagues Ian Heller and Brian Hopkins, also sponsored by Epicor and Proton.ai. And then as we begin the new year, the second half of the decade, we've got yet another episode of AI News and Gurus, the show for intelligent distributors with Brian Hopkins and Brooks Hamilton. Um, so I think I'm going to take a risk and tell my joke now. Um, so this woman gets an opportunity to audition for a Broadway show. And they say, okay, your turn. And so she comes out, she says, you say potato, I say potato. You say tomato, I say tomato. They say, that's enough, Mrs. Kamenstein. She says, that's Kamenstein.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Take care,
Thank you.
guys.
Pleasure to be with you today. Thanks you so much.
Likewise. Take
You
care, Dan.
too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.